Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Matthew Smith and Janine Leffer right here. And we got a video for you that is about our May reviews. So, without further ado, let's see what we got.
The first thing we wanted to talk about is the concert that we just got home from. We went to see Doug Lamy at the
West Kennebunk
Kennybunk
Methodist
Church.
Church.
Did you have a favorite song from the concert today?
Well, I couldn't really tell which was an absolute favorite, but what I did catch on was especially one tune that was a short tune, but there were two girls who did some step dancing.
They did a good job. Those were Doug's daughters.
Right. What about
Um,
you? What was your favorite?
I liked the song Introduction into Ireland, and then the song he did at the very beginning, the jig reel. That was really good.
And
Um,
by the way, in June there's going to be a double header back at that Methodist church. So it's right off of exit 25 on 95 in Maine. So if you want to join, each concert on Sunday there is just $20 a person.
Next we're going to talk about movies. So the first movie we wanted to talk about is Appaloosa, which is a cowboy movie that we watched a couple of weeks ago. What did you think of that?
It was very realistic when it was the old days out west, and I also liked Renee Zellweger's character.
I did too. The only thing I didn't like was the violence.
Me too.
So we overall gave that movie a B. Next, we wanted to talk about the movie we just watched last night, Ever After. Ever After came out in 1998 and is a modernized retelling of Cinderella that stars Drew Barrymore from E.T.
And
And
Angelica Houston, who plays the evil stepmother.
how would you compare Ever After to the 2015 remake of Cinderella?
So, like Janine said, this was a modern telling of the fairy tale. Except this girl's name wasn't Cinderella, it was Danielle. And then when you put in what she was going through with her love interest and how her mother was mistreating her, I mean, she only had one stepsister who was evil too, but unlike the two that were in the other movies. So there was not as much tough luck and much ado being a servant as you might have thought.
Yeah, well, in the Disney movies, though, one of the stepsisters does have a redemption arc, and Cinderella ends up teaching her how to be polite. And
Well, that didn't come until the second sequel to Cinderella, I don't think.
I know it didn't, but I'm just saying that both of the stepsisters both weren't evil for all three cartoon movies because Anastasia, which was one of the stepsisters, had a redemption arc, but Drizella, the other stepsister, stayed really mean. And it was exactly the same way in this movie. Like Jacqueline, the one of the stepsisters was the nicer stepsister that actually showed that she cared about Cinderella, and the other stepsister, Marguerite, she only cared about marrying the prince and being wealthy, just like her mother did. So, so we gave um we gave Ever After a B plus, and this is our ranking for all of the collective Disney versions of Cinderella that we have watched. A the
The original Cinderella from 1950, we had the highest grade, A minus, because it's a true classic.
the 2015 live action movie with Lily James gets a gets a B, because of the scenery, because of the soundtrack. And now, how would you compare the performances of Angelica Houston versus Kate Blanchett?
Well, Angelica Houston looked more like the actual person who was a right character in playing the evil stepmother to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that Kate Blanchett did a really good job playing a stepmother too. Another thing that's interesting about live action Cinderella is that in the 2015 movie, um, Cinderella actually forgives her stepmother for her mistreatment. That doesn't happen in any of the other movies. Um,
And then the one we gave B plus was
three we
three different versions. The Ever After we talked about, Rogers and Hammerstein, and also the Cinderella 3 Disney Twist in Time.
Personally, though, I would move up Cinderella 3 a twist in time to A minus just because that is one of the best Disney sequels that they made, and I really like the time travel aspect of that movie. I thought that was a lot of fun, and if they were ever to make that Disney movie into live action, it would be amazing. And Phantom Strider said the same thing in his video about Disney sequels also.
And then the last two we gave Cinderella, the 2021 version on Amazon Prime.
The other B plus rating was for Rogers and Hammerstein Cinderella, and the thing that we like about Ever After, Rogers and Hammerstein Cinderella, and 2015 live action Cinderella is the fact that Prince Charming actually has a name. And in the Disney cartoons, he doesn't have a name. So, for those who don't remember, in the Rogers and Hammerstein musical, the king's name is Christopher. In the 2015 live action movie, his name is Kit. And then in Ever After, the prince's name is Henry. And out of all the prince characters, which one was your favorite one?
Good question. I think maybe Henry.
I do too.
Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted, but as I was saying, the last two movies that we gave C plus and C to was Cinderella 2021 version on Amazon Prime.
So we didn't even make it all the way through this movie. We had to shut it off because the current pop culture references that were being referenced was too overkill for us, and we just didn't think the movie seemed very realistic and true to the original fairy tale, and Dina Menzel did not live up to her previous performances as Elsa in Frozen
And Camila
and
Cabello
Rent.
herself is more on the pop star segment. And if you ever never have heard her hits like Havana or Senorita with Shawn Mendes, they really get you grooving. And you don't have to know Spanish so much to really enjoy a Cuban singer like her.
No, I enjoy her music. I just didn't think she was well cast in that movie. So next up, we're gonna talk about TV shows. The first show so we are still on our kick of watching TV shows with Friends actors in them that were on after Friends. The first show we're gonna talk about today is
Is Joey.
Joey. So Joey was the spinoff that aired from 2004 to 2006 that basically focuses on Joey's acting career in California, which those plot lines can get very repetitive, so that's why I'm glad there's episodes in between those that add to the humor, like the one with the book club or the one with the party that Michael and Joey throw at the apartment that has Simon Helberg from The Big Bang Theory and Jayma Mays from Glee in it as guest stars. And what I liked about that episode is that it showed that Michael had a bit of a rival in Simon Helberg's character Seth, and that made me wonder, like, so Michael, Joey's nephew, goes to Caltech, which is the same school that um um Sheldon and Leonard and Howard go to in The Big Bang Theory. And as I just said, Simon Helberg, who played Howard, a much younger version, was in this episode of Joey. So what I like to imagine is that when did Big Bang Theory first start?
I think it started in 2007.
Okay, so you would have to think that in 2004, Michael and Seth, who is Simon Helberg's character, were freshmen. And then by 2007, when Big Bang Theory aired, it maybe he was like a senior or um getting ready to go to graduate school, because aren't Sheldon and his friends in Big Bang Theory in graduate school, or are they in their senior year of college? I couldn't figure that out.
I can't figure out the difference either by 2007. They could have been in graduate school. But another episode that I'd like to mention now is Joey and the Road Trip.
Yeah, this was one of the episodes that didn't. So in this episode, Joey gets a job as a beauty pageant judge in Las Vegas, and um he sleeps with one of the contestants, which kind of gets him in trouble, although Bob Saget, who plays one of the other judges, kind of takes the fall for Joey's misdeed, and he ends up leaving instead. And I really liked Bob Saget's guest star appearance in this episode. Like, I originally watched the series when it first came out, and I kind of blocked it out of my mind somehow that Bob Saget was on this show, but he was great, and he played himself. And the weird thing about that is this was like after Full House had ended for a long time. Like, Full House ended in 1995. So you'd think Danny Tanner loved to hug, but Bob Saget, as Bob Saget, he didn't let Joey hug him. So I was like, ooh, that's a main difference between Danny Tanner and the actual Bob Saget. So I think Bob Saget was really good in that episode.
And another thing I want to stress out is every time you go to the casino, make sure that you gamble at your own pace with your own money, but don't play any tricks, either stealing money or trying to figure out the combination to a slot machine, because how that this happens with Joey and Michael really got them in trouble as well.
No,
And
it wasn't Michael. It wasn't Joey who was Joey didn't join the gambling until the end, because he did that after he got kicked out of judging the beauty pageant.
but what I'm trying to say is, don't ever try anything like that at any casino, whether it's in Vegas or Atlantic City, or even here in New England where we have Oxford Casino in Maine, because you'll get caught every time, and there are those security cameras that will capture every detail.
Okay, so what actually happened in this episode is, like, Joey's nephew and his sister, Dina, do this thing going on where they, like, rig a game of poker, and basically they cheat at poker and win money that way. And then after Joey gets kicked out of judging the beauty pageant, he joins them in on their scam, and then they all get caught by the people who run the security office at the casino, and they basically get told to leave because they're stealing people's money, which we don't condone. I don't even like to gamble. I don't even like casinos. I lost $20 at the last casino I went to, and I don't think I'm ever going to go back to any casinos because of that experience. The next show that we wanted to talk about is The Comeback.
And we gave this a low range C minus, even when we just saw the first couple of episodes, the pilot. But we said we're not catching on to it.
So The Comeback was a very short-lived show. And what makes me curious about this show is why they would even renew it for a second season. Because one is left to wonder. The first season aired in 2005.
And the second season
started 9 years later in 2014. Now,
right.
Lisa Kudrow could have had a busy schedule with making other movies. That could have been the case. But we just couldn't get an idea of into our minds about why people even found this show humorous. I love Phoebe's character on Friends because she's relatable, but her sense of humor is also very dark. Lisa Kudrow's character in this show was not relatable at all. She was rude, she was loud, she was obnoxious. I didn't really like her. And basically what the comeback is, it's basically a reality TV show filmed within a show. So this was like kind of a similar vibe to The Office, although it wasn't a documentary. It was like behind the scenes of a reality TV show. And Lisa Kudrow's character is cast as the annoying aunt in this show called Room and Board, which is about 20 somethings who live in a condo complex in Florida. So essentially this show is sort of like Friends, but instead of Phoebe being one of the friends, her character is like the older aunt character, and then there are like 3 or 4 other 20 something year old girls who are the owners of the condo. We didn't like this show and we don't recommend it.
And now we'd like to mention about the rebirth of The Odd Couple, which we're currently seeing right now.
So right now we are watching the Odd Couple TV series that came out in 2014. This is one TV show that Matthew Perry did not mention in his book, and I don't know why, because he should have. I think he really undermined his talents by not talking about this show, because it's really funny. Um, he plays Oscar Madison, and what's the guy's name who plays Felix? No, what's the actor's name who plays Felix?
I forget.
Yeah, me too. I can't remember his name. His first name is Thomas. That's all I remember. But, no, we're still on this page. We're just at the bottom.
But what Janine really likes is the episode called Ghost Rider.
I like the episode called The Ghost Rider because it makes Matthew Perry's character related to me because I'm a writer, and in this episode, he's asked to ghostwrite autobiography for a famous celebrity baseball player, which is interesting because I was just watching a YouTube video earlier this week that's a video essay about ghost-written celebrity memoirs, and it focuses on Millie Bobby Brown's book, 19 Steps, which I read a couple of months ago and loved. I didn't realize the book was ghostwritten until I watched this YouTube video. So please, if you're interested in learning more about ghostwritten memoirs, I will leave the link to Jack Edwards' video in the description. And before we flip the page over to talk about the next TV show episodes, we forgot to talk about Red Rising.
Yeah, because Janine has been lately reading a lot of books, and Red Rising was one of those recommendations from one of her followers called Haley Pham.
Haley Pham is one of the booktubers that I follow. She is in her mid-20s and she's from Texas. And Red Rising was a book that her husband Ryan picked out in her video, My Husband Chooses My TBR, for the month of June last summer. And she also recommended it in a reel she posted recently called Books That I Recommend Guys to Read. So we both read it together. Basically summarizes Hunger Games and outer space. And what did you like best about Red Rising?
I really liked the aspect that it was on Mars, and like you said, it was that version of the Hunger Games, and people had to chase to get their own food, and there was a little bit of conflict involved.
Yeah, and I really liked the setting on Mars. It really gave an interesting concept of what a book series like The Hunger Games would be like if it was set in outer space. And I liked the conflict that was building up, and I liked the relationships that were building up as well. I mean, I know you didn't get to finish the book all the way, but I finished it and I really enjoyed it. And there are like 4 books in the series, I think, so I definitely plan to continue reading the series. And I hope you are able to get it out of the library again and finish it, because I know you ran out of time with having to complete it because you had to return it the other day.
I'm not much of a reader myself, but I'm trying to get into for some spare time so I can think very carefully of different environments.
So, what would you give Red Rising for a rating?
For me, it's about a B plus.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we would like to thank Haley for recommending this book to both of us. So, thank you, Haley. I hope you see this video, by the way. I'm not sure if you will. So, next, we're going to talk about the TV episodes that are talked about, the Friends episodes that are talked about in Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. We are buddy reading Matthew Perry's memoir with Sonia and Chandler, but they are not done reading the book yet, so we had to postpone our Zoom meeting to discuss it until July to give them more time to finish the book. But we are going to talk about the episodes of Friends that are mentioned in the book, and then we will share our thoughts on the book once we talk about it with our friends. So the first the first episode that is mentioned in Matthew Perry's book that we wanted to talk about today is the one after the Super Bowl, which is a two-part episode that was set after the Super Bowl. In the first episode, the guest star is Brooke Shields, and in the second part of the episode, the two guest stars are Julia Roberts, who at that time was dating Matthew Perry, and Jean-Claude Van Damme. Now, why did you give this episode a C+?
I gave the episode that grade because somehow it was.
Oh, I'm sorry, you gave it a C. Entertainment Weekly gave it a C+, but why did you give it a C?
Let me start over. I gave this rating a C because I thought maybe Brooke Shields herself being in a cameo, she didn't really have that funny talent to be in a comedy because you could see her in other genres where she's more talented.
So, I watched this video on YouTube that is by a Friends fan who's from England. His name is Stuart, and he said in this video that basically in this episode Brooke Shields was like a gag character and she was not meant to be taken that seriously. And yeah, I mean, her character was very over the top and it got annoying to the point where I didn't really enjoy the episode very much. The only scene in that part of the episode that I like is the part where Joey tells Erica, who is Brooke Shields' character, that he's not actually Dr. Drake Moray, but he's an actor who plays him on TV. And then Monica and Rachel get into the scenario and they say these things and throw water into Joey's face, and then and then Chandler gets into the situation too and says, "You left the toilet seat up, you bastard!" And he throws water in Joey's face too, like. And Matthew Perry's line in that scene was totally unscripted, and that's what I love about his acting. How
He sometimes breaks the fourth wall or goes out off script.
and does improv. Like, there's another scene from another episode where Joey gets the job at the museum, and he gets the job at the museum that Ross works at, and Chandler says Donald Trump wants his blue blazer black. Like, he says the line incorrectly, and then Rachel and Monica end up kind of teasing him and making fun of him because he messed up his line. And Monica says, "No, you made a mistake because you're stupid."
Oh.
And I just thought it was so funny how they all played off Matthew Perry's mistake. So in the second part of this two-part episode, Julia Roberts, who at that time was dating Matthew Perry, plays a former elementary school classmate of Chandler named Susie Moss, who Chandler kind of picked on and bullied as a kid. So basically, she gets revenge on him by stealing his clothes in the bathroom and leaving him only in her underwear. So Chandler basically has to leave the restaurant without any clothes on and holding the bathroom door so nobody can see that he's naked. So that was funny. The other relationship dynamic that's featured in this episode is Monica's most relatable moment for me when she's having relationship anxiety about asking Jean-Claude Van Damme on a date. So Rachel does this for her and ends up going on a date with Jean-Claude Van Damme instead. And then later, he goes on a date with Monica, and when Monica asks why he would make the exception for her to date her, basically he says to her, "Oh, I made the exception because Rachel said you wanted to have a threesome with me and Drew Barrymore, and Drew has a lot of standards you have to live up to," or something like that. And basically, Monica and Rachel get into a huge fight because of what Monica said to because of what Rachel said to Jean-Claude Van Damme. Hot take for this episode: why do people think he's cute? Because I don't really see why people would think he's cute. I guess I'm just not into those kind of actors from those kinds of movies, because he does a lot of like martial arts type action movies, doesn't he? Isn't that what Jean-Claude Van Damme does?
I don't recall.
Okay, so I gave that episode an A minus. Matt gave it a C. Average rating is B. Entertainment Weekly gave it a C. The next episode we wanted to talk about is the one where Monica and Chandler get engaged. The marriage episode is also one of my favorites, but besides the proposal itself, my favorite scene is when like Chandler goes to confront Richard about showing up at the proposal dinner and almost wrecking his proposal to Monica. And Richard then says, "You go get her, Chandler, and if you do get her, don't let her go." I love that scene between Tom Selleck and Matthew Perry. It made me cry almost as much as the proposal scene, because it was just such a heartfelt scene besides in between Tom Selleck and Matthew Perry, and both of their acting in that scene was really good. And of course, I mean, have you seen that episode? The proposal episode?
I don't know if I have or not, but you gave it an A minus.
I gave it an A minus, and I believe Entertainment Weekly did too.
And then you gave the one where Paul's a man a B minus.
So in Matthew Perry's memoir, he discusses basically how he worked with Bruce Willis on the whole 9 yards, and he basically made a bet with him somewhere during the production of the movie, which Bruce Willis lost, and that's how he got the guest spot on Friends, through losing the bet with Matthew Perry. So in this 3-episode arc, Ross is dating his college student Elizabeth, which I'll get to in a minute. And Bruce Willis plays her dad, Paul, who he's hysterical. He is what saves this 3-episode arc from being totally horrendous, because in my opinion, Ross's relationship with Elizabeth should have not been in the show at all, because it's disgusting. But yeah, my favorite quote of Bruce Willis's in that episode arc is, "I'm just a love machine." And I saw this episode very recently, and it's very, very, very hard for me to watch now, because Bruce Willis has really bad dementia, and he probably doesn't even remember playing that character anymore, which makes me very, very sad.
Yeah, that is sad when you have dementia.
So as I said earlier, we are going to review Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing in our summer entertainment review video that will be posted at the end of August. So be patient with us, please.
And now we're going to talk about Cougar Town.
Yes. So,
and the episode we're talking about is, first of all, called Walls.
So this is the episode where Travis Jules' son, is getting ready to propose to his girlfriend Kristen, who he has been dating for a little bit, but basically Courtney Cox's character Jules basically tries to meddle in their proposal and try not like basically tries to get them to break up. And I thought Jules was really annoying and sort of rude because she should have just let Travis do his own thing and not try to meddle in a very important moment in her son's life. And that episode made me kind of mad. It was like the episode of Friends where Monica is trying to get Chandler to show a more emotion because when they're watching Bambi together, like he doesn't show any emotion when Bambi dies. He says, "Oh, I'm gonna cry because they stopped drawing the deer." So in the previous episode to this one, it's a very similar plot line with Jules and Grayson, where Jules is trying to get Grayson to be more emotional and express himself more when it comes to like sharing like feeling sad that his dad passed away or something. So I mentioned in another video that when I compare this episode to the episode of Friends, where the one where Chandler can't cry, I think Jules shows a little bit of more maturity than Monica's character does, because towards the end of this scene where Monica is trying to get Chandler to show emotion, she gets kind of aggressive towards him and really gets kind of scary towards Chandler and gets kind of angry at him for not showing emotion. And I think Jules's characterization in that scene in Cry to Me, which is the name of this episode, is very much more calmer than Monica was. So what did you think of Walls? Did you like that episode or did you not like it?
It wasn't my favorite episode. I gave that a C plus.
I think I did too, but I don't remember because I did not write it down.
And then we're going to talk about the episode Something Good Coming, which is a 2 episode season 2 finale.
So this episode was mentioned in Miss Mojo's video about crossover episodes, and this was listed in that video as like the number 3 or number 4 best crossover episode, because apparently it's supposed to be a crossover with the show Community, which I haven't even watched yet. But I don't think it works as a crossover because the character from Community, his name is Abed.
Abed, yeah.
Yeah, he only shows up in one scene for like a split second and then he's not seen again, so I just don't think. I just feel like this episode is considered a crossover because the people who worked on these shows at the time were probably working at the same production studio or something.
Right.
So
And then the second part episode is where after Travis has spent some time in Hawaii trying to escape after his breakup with Kirsten and running away from college, Lori is doing her best to come over and bring Travis back to his real natural self.
let me explain a little bit about the plot of this episode. So, in the first part of the 2-part episode, Travis basically moves out of his house and goes off to Hawaii because he has a bad breakup with his girlfriend after she says no to the proposal for marriage, and he drops out of college. So he basically moves to Hawaii to get away from his clingy mother and also to try to get a job and make his own life. And Lori, who is played by Busy Phillips, actually is a good friend to Travis and encourages him to move back to Florida and start over again with going to college and try to work things out with Kristen. And then if things don't work out with Kristen, then he can work on finding another girlfriend. So,
So that episode, what did you give it, Gene?
aside from the fact that I think it doesn't work as a crossover, I give it a B.
I do too. And then we started to watch season 3 of Cougar Town. It starts off with the first episode called Ain't Love Strange.
So in this episode, I made a separate video where I compare this episode to the episode of Friends that it kind of mirrored, or part of an episode of Friends. But I'm going to mention it here too in case you guys don't get to watch my other video. So, in this in the beginning of this episode of Friends, Ross is basically telling Monica that she's too predictable, and that is what the plot of this episode of Cougar Town mirrors. Basically, Ellie, who is played by, I can't remember what the actress's name is, but Ellie basically tells Jules that she is too predictable, and she is basically trying to prove to all of her friends throughout this episode that she's not predictable. And
And also, you have Grayson S. Who has,
no, we're still at the first bullet point, comparing the toilet papering prank. So we're talking about that first.
yeah, the toilet prank is for some who went to high school and was on the football team. I don't know if any of you remember if your backyard was ever covered in toilet paper. It sounds like a fun prank, but it's really wasteful and not really something I would recommend doing. It's really immature for adults as well.
It's, yeah, I agree. Good point. I think that is something. So basically, what happens in this episode is Jules's car gets toilet papered by rambunctious teenagers who are basically trying to get back at her for something she said at the skateboard park or something. I don't remember what really happened with this whole thing, but in her goal to prove to her friends that she's not predictable, instead of like confronting the kids' parents and going to the house and saying, "Oh, your kids toilet papered my car. They should be held accountable for bad behavior." No, her and her friends go off late at night to toilet paper a house in town that's near their cul-de-sac, and basically that's what happens. And we both didn't like that whole aspect of the episode because we don't think it's really a good way for adults to act and mirror good behavior for younger people at all.
No, it really is not the proper way to even get you to propose to who you would predict would be your wife.
Let's get into that in a minute. The second bullet point actually focuses on Grayson going to ask Jules's father for her permission to marry him, for his permission to marry him. That that was a little awkward because that seems like something really old-fashioned to do in a show that's set in the late 2000s. Like, that sounds like something people would do in like the 1800s or the early 1900s, not present day. So I just thought that was weird.
It was weird.
And now to the proposal scene. As I just talked about when I talked about the one with the proposal. The proposal scene in Friends between Monica and Chandler is wonderful. The setup for that is beautiful, and the setting of the candlelit apartment, top notch. In this episode, though, I feel that the proposal didn't give off the same kind of romantic vibe as it should have, because basically it takes place right after they toilet paper this person's house, and Grayson gets down on one knee and proposes to Jules and asks her to marry him. Like, the proposal itself is sweet, but I just think they should have done it in a more romantic location instead of in front of a toilet papered house. That's my biggest beef with that
So,
episode.
so that episode rating, we gave it, I think, what did you give it, Gene?
I have down B plus.
Okay, B plus. And the last thing we want to talk about in today's video is the season finale, season 1 of Golden Girls, the episode called The Way We Met.
So this episode focuses on how Blanche, Rose, Sophia, and Dorothy all met each other and came to live together in the condo in Miami.
So what it started off was, it was Blanche at the grocery store, and Rose came in holding a cat. And it seemed at that point, it was where Blanche was asking Rose, after they start off with a little conversation, if Rose, who was still looking for a place in Miami, where she moved from St. Old, Minnesota, to live in. So it kind of was a nice question to ask at first. But then when you get Dorothy in there, that was a little bit later when she was searching along for a place after her breakup and divorce with her husband Stan.
So we really like this episode because it introduces us to our 5 female protagonists, and in my opinion, I think this would have worked as the pilot episode to Golden Girls instead of the finale, and then the pilot episode that we actually got could have been the second episode of season 1 instead of the pilot. We loved this episode and we gave it a B plus. So
And what it really is just a flashback when all 3 girls are sitting at the table at night and reminiscing they never should have watched that Psycho movie. And then when they are reminiscing over some cheesecake and when they first moved in, how they had some mishaps with shopping and getting along, how the cheesecake actually was a start of their real friendship.
mm-hmm. Okay, so before we sign off, we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about our updating schedule for the summer, because as the weather gets nicer, we're going to be not inside as much filming videos. So initially, I wanted to do a very long video at the end of August that like focuses on talking about all of the stuff that we watch throughout June, July, and August. But how long do you think that video would end up being if we talked about 3 months worth
It would
of
probably
stuff?
be 3 times as long as this.
So, what is your best idea for how to break things up?
My best idea is not to really talk so much about the actual plot, but maybe more so just give a couple of notes and then just maybe our reviews and our ratings.
Well, that's a good idea, but what I was thinking is that so that way we're not talking about so much things in the video at the end of August, we could maybe split it up into 3 different review videos. If you don't want to my idea is that maybe we can talk about the stuff that we watch in June at the end of June, and then talk about the stuff that we watch in July and August. Maybe have that be a 2-part video where we do the stuff we watch in July at the beginning of August and the stuff we watch in August.
Well, there'll be more to come when we get our thoughts of what we review. But in the meantime, as
I
we're
didn't finish. I was gonna say we should. The second part of the summer entertainment review video will be for July and August. Will be probably posted in September, after Labor Day weekend, because by then we should have our notes gathered together about all of the episodes and movies that we watch in between now and then. That's it.
so as we're filming this right now, we still are in the month of May, but we're gonna have this posted for you all right in the beginning of June. So hopefully by then you all had a great Memorial Day weekend and maybe you watched a baseball game or something like that. And I hope you're enjoying the official start of summer as seasonal places around here are opening up. So you don't want to be inside all day watching this. Go out and do something for fun. We'll see you in the next video.
Have a great Memorial Day weekend, everybody.